Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 52 Weeks, 52 Amazing Authors. And I am joined today by Maria C. Palmer, author, visionary, along with her dad of the book On the Rocks. How are you today?
I'm well, Dr. Lisa. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited about this.
I'm excited too, because first of all, the title, right? And you talk about this in the book. On the rocks could mean, like my husband likes to have his whiskey on the rocks, right? It could mean
Yes.
a community in a particular area. But talk to us a little bit about, let's just start with the why. Why did you decide to really finish the book, right? And finish the book?
Yeah, so my journey is a long one, so I'm going to kind of truncate it for you. It began 17 years ago, really as a family history, and it was at a time that was a really hard point for my family. My family had just kind of gotten out of the restaurant business and not by choice. I knew that one of the things that always kept my dad happy was seeing his customers and being part of the restaurant. So it really started by me using those old-fashioned tape deck that we used to use in college when we would record professors, as my kids say, during the dinosaur era. But I would just ask my dad simple questions like, tell me about a time that something very unexpected happened at the restaurant, or tell me about a time that a celebrity came in. Or what was the first fight in the bar? Tell me about that. And then I would just press record and be quiet and let him talk. And so that became really the basis of the information that kind of was comprised and ended up becoming On the Rocks. And then, as far as kind of transforming it from that into a book form, I got very lucky because I have a wonderful high school teacher at the time named Ruthie Dines, and now she's remarried. Her name is Ruthie Robbins, and she and I stayed close throughout. She grew up right across the street from where the restaurant once was. She was my teacher and also a customer at the restaurant from probably whenever I was in sixth grade all the way through high school. And then even after high school, her oldest son and I have always been close friends, and we moved independently to Los Angeles. So she would come and visit in LA whenever we were there. We would go out to eat and, have a good time. So she knew I was working on this project, and she was able to take some of the vignettes that I had just spoke about to her writing group in Buffalo, New York. And they had agreed on two things. So the first being that the book needed a lot of work, which I knew, and the second being that it had a lot of commercial potential. And so it was at that point that the two of us partnered together and became the voice of my father, Joseph Costanzo Jr. And we wrote On the Rock, and that's kind of how it happened.
Wow, I love that. So before we started recording, I shared with you that my father worked for the post office for 45 years. He wasn't an entrepreneur. When I started reading the pages as an entrepreneur myself, I started to really feel like I was there when all the things were happening. So one of the areas of the book talked about how this man, I can't remember the name, I think his name was Joe, maybe. I can't remember, but how he befriended your father coming in and, really getting close to him. And then all of a sudden, your father got this notice to appear in court. Your father's an honest man, right? So he shows up to court and he looks, and there's the guy, right? And found out, after court, 5 days later, he had a citation, which I think it was like 325 or 350. But when I read it, one of the things that spoke volumes for me was hard work. It's hard worker just like mine, but also integrity, right? About what you do, who you are. I also think Mama Donna, right, Donna?
Yep, Donna.
Very was very like, okay, I don't think we should do this. Or, she spoke her mind, which, again, sometimes women don't do that, right? They just go along just to be getting along. But I think Mama Donna was like, I'm gonna have a voice in this. I think she might have called it an experiment. She didn't think it was really gonna happen.
She's always the voice of reason, you know? I think every entrepreneur needs a Donna C in their life just to keep them grounded and to keep it really to keep the food coming on the table. We were a young family. I was only 4 and my sister was only 9 months old. So a lot of risks were taken. And, I love that you highlight these stories of hard work. I was just talking with somebody about this, and that's something that's kind of lacking today overall. It's you don't do what's in your job description, you do the job that needs to get done. So that might be in your job description. It may be a little outside of your job description, but you do it with integrity and you do it because that's the way you're supposed to work. And I love that you grabbed that from the book. That scene is so funny. You're the first interviewer to ask me about that, and I'm actually so glad that you did. It comes at a time where McKees Rocks, for those of you who are not familiar with the setting of the book, it's a small suburb outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and it's not a place for really anybody but the locals. So if you go to Pittsburgh, you are not visiting McKees Rocks. You're probably going to drive through quickly with your windows up. There's really nothing there. It was not an area that you would open a world-class business in, but whenever you're 32 years old, like my parents were, whenever they got into the restaurant and they didn't have any money, it was a place where they could start out and kind of take that risk. And so my dad was not originally from the McKees Rocks area, and everybody in McKees Rock, think of small town America, they all know each other, they all support each other, they have each other's backs, they don't really like outsiders all that much. So for my dad, that was already one hurdle. He started with the after hours nightlife business, so mostly the bar business, because that's where people were in the community. It's a very blue collar community. Think the steel age, think, that hardworking mentality. So what do people do after their shift? They go and they drink at a bar. And so my dad knew that he was a people person and that he could draw a crowd. And within a couple of months of him being in business, that's exactly what happened. Everybody was coming to his place, but he was only doing about 10 dinners a night. So he was making the bulk of his money really after 10 or 11 o'clock at night. The laws in Pennsylvania is that all bars need to shut down by 2 a.m., but he had packed bars at 2 a.m. So he started stretching the rules a little bit, which he really shouldn't do, but he would let people, if he knew the people inside of the bar, he would keep the bar open. And so this particular gentleman that you are speaking of, for the first time whenever he came in the bar, my dad just shut the bar down at 2 a.m. and said, all right, everybody's got to go. But then they started to become friends, and he started to know this person and know what this person liked to drink, and they had conversations. So he became somebody that was trusted, and my dad went back to his old ways and started staying open past 2 a.m. And all of a sudden he gets a citation in the mail, and he was almost in disbelief whenever he went into court and he saw his friend there. And he was saying to himself, why is this guy here? He's, a bar customer. But it took him a moment to actually realize what had happened. And the part of the story that I actually love the most is what happens after all of this is done. So my dad admitted guilt. He had to pay the citation. But his friend, who was also the citation officer, came up to him afterwards and said, Joe, I really give you a lot of credit. Most people would have thrown somebody else under the bus or admitted or not said that they did anything wrong, kind of like tried to skirt the blame. But he was like, you were different. You said, oh, yes, I did this. I was trying to feed my family. I'm very sorry. I'll pay the consequence. And that's it. And he said, honestly, it really pained me to have to give you the citation because I truly honestly liked you and I truly honestly felt like you were a friend. And my dad understood that on a different level. Like sometimes our jobs are our jobs and we do things that we don't necessarily want to do. We deliver hard news to people, or we may have to give somebody a negative review in their work, or use something as a teaching moment, but it doesn't mean overall that they're bad people. And I think that's a very very important message for us to hear, especially as we sit here in 2024, because one disagreement or one bad moment does not mean that the character of the person is all bad. And we can all find things. If we disagree on something, we can find ways to work around it and work together. And it doesn't mean that we have to hate that other person. It really doesn't. And so, that was one of those stories that we kind of used to highlight that point.
I love it. So as I'm reflecting on reading the book, some of the major things I saw: entrepreneurship, family, but I also saw this reoccurring theme of, let's just call them sabotagers, like folks that didn't want this restaurant to be. And I'm thinking about one passage in the book where I'm gonna call her Mama Donna again, talked about we're not giving zucchini away for free, right? So I was thinking zucchini, how much is zucchini? But it makes sense, because if you continue to give away items that people like, that's what they're going to expect, and you're never going to make any money. And when you think about it, Dad took a year off of work to, try to make this work. And so that means income wasn't coming in necessarily, right? So I know in my household as an entrepreneur, that risk makes my husband very uneasy.
Yes,
Because when it's good,
100%.
it's good. But when it's bad, it's bad.
Yes. And I think whenever you have an entrepreneurial mindset, you're able to sort of see through the trees and see through the clouds, and you have a clear vision and mission of where you're going. And sometimes the steps to get you there are not so clear to somebody else who's much more of a cut and dry, logical personality. I really do think it takes the balance of both people. I love that you are an entrepreneurial spirit. I consider myself one as well. And I think that your husband and my husband are very similar to one another, as with Mama Donna. They just want to see, what is the logical path to get here? I'm not, explain this to me, explain what this looks like on paper. But the problem with entrepreneurs, the good problem with entrepreneurs, is their work doesn't always make sense on paper. On paper, the Primadonna should have been a flop from the beginning. There was nothing redeemable about this small joint that was going to be opened in, the wrong side of the tracks. But it worked, and it really worked. And I think part of it is the passion and the belief that you have in yourself and in your product. And even through writing On the Rocks, and I share this publicly with people, especially those who are thinking about getting into a creative field or an entrepreneurial field, this was not paved with all roses, rainbows, and unicorns. This was paved with mostly rejections. Out of the 265 agents, literary agents, that I approached about this project, a good 140 of them ghosted me and never got back to me. And a little over 100 told me no, it would never happen. Sometimes not in not so kind words. One person actually laughed at me and he said, "Is this a joke?" And I said, "No, this is not a joke, sir. I'm very serious about this." And people said things like, "This is only going to be a regional thing. People in Pittsburgh might like this, but nobody else outside of Pittsburgh. Your dad just doesn't have the reach to sit on the shelves with Anthony Bourdain and Stanley Tucci. And nobody's going to really resonate with this who wasn't alive during a time before cell phones, because they're not going to understand it." And you know what? I thought more deeply about this. I thought, what does our world need right now when there's so much dissension? We need a story of an underdog who accomplishes the impossible, who does it in a way of humility and teachable moments, who admits that they are wrong at certain points, because we are all wrong. The duality of what makes us human, there are good things about us that we love to talk about, and we talk about a lot of that in the book. We talk about the celebrities, we talk about the awards, we talk about the appeal that this was a destination restaurant before we had things like MapQuest and Google. But what we also talk about in the book are the failures or the mishaps, or the example of the LBC guy coming in and giving us a citation. Or whenever my dad goes to federal prison, we talk about what that looks like and how he's able to sort of transfer some of those skills in the bar to, what happened behind bars. We talk about whenever he ran for political office, some of the mistakes that were made in his fundraising campaign, which was actually a fund lowering campaign. We talk about all of this because that's what real life is. That's what it means to be human. And if you can sit and say, oh, I've never done anything wrong, or I don't make mistakes, then really you're not being honest with yourself. Everybody out there makes a mistake, but it's okay. It's how you pick up your trousers afterwards, how you trudge through that mud, even if it's quicksand. It's okay. You're gonna get through it. But what are you gonna learn on the other side? That's what life is all about.
Oh my God, you have just dropped so many gems. And I was just thinking, outside of being a healthcare professional, I also am an adjunct instructor at different universities. And I really see the book being used as a case study in the classroom setting, because it gives you life experiences that you really can't pay for, right? You are learning you're walking through the lens of someone who actually lived that entrepreneurial journey, ups and downs, and that's real life. And I like the fact that the book is authentic, that it's transparent, because we got enough fake. We got fake everything, right? So that authentic, transparent account, the events is what really spoke to me. And as I embark on this 52 authors, 52 weeks, I love that your book was different than the last book that I read, because as I'm reading each book, I'm reflecting, I'm learning, I'm crying, I'm smiling, I'm going through the whole gamut of emotions. And I love that, because I see that I'm headed towards a place in life where I'm going to be able to take all of these experiences and lessons that I've learned from myself and others with me. And when I first embarked on this, I didn't know that that was going to happen. And so I love it.
Yes, and I love that too. I think that this is really the perfect case study of what you can do right and what you can do wrong. And there's a quote in the beginning of the book, if I could just share it, because I think that it embodies exactly what we're talking about. And I'm gonna read it, because if I don't read it, I'm gonna get it wrong. Nobody wants to get it wrong. But this is a quote that my dad always says, and I think that it's very true to everybody. And it's, the intangibles that enabled me to achieve my greatness also contained the seeds to my destruction. And I think, isn't that such the truth with anybody who's embarking on a journey, right? Sometimes in life, we do 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, but we're still moving forward. You got to keep on going, and you got to sort of embrace your personality for what it is. Know that it has limitations. Everybody's personality does, but try to hone in on those pieces that are very strong for you. And, if you need some help in those other areas, there are wonderful people out there that could help you. And, what did we learn after that? Well, my dad's not great at taxes and accounting.
He's not the only one, right? He's not the only one.
Yeah, there are people out there that are. So maybe in retrospect, we should have hired one of those people, because it was not us.
Well, you know what? I think back to the pandemic, when we had all of those PPP loans and all the different loans.
Yes.
Learned how many business owners didn't have a basic bookkeeping infrastructure. And I've been fortunate in that I've had mentoring, I've had a community that helped stress the importance of understanding my 3 basic financial statements. Now, do I look at them at the frequency that I'm supposed to look at? No, but do I know that they exist? Do I know how to grab them if someone asks me for them? Yes, yes, and yes. So again, an opportunity to learn and grow. And you mentioned you take steps forward, but then you take steps back. The question is, when you're taking those steps back, what did you learn in the process so that you don't make that same exact mistake again, but knowing you will make mistakes. Life is not perfect.
Absolutely. And, part of that is you have to be willing to fail. as an entrepreneur. You really do. And that sounds like really hard to swallow advice, but it's true. I put myself out there so many times, and I could tell you stories about things that have happened to me. I mean, I went to Philadelphia one time for a conference, and not one person showed up. And I was just sort of sitting there, and it was just crazy insane. I mean, even the person that was running it had no idea what was going on. And then she had this light bulb moment and she goes, I know what's going on. And so I was waiting for her to like relay the information of what was going on. No, she just had the moment. But she didn't really tell us what was going on. But in that, did I waste a day going to Philadelphia? Yeah, maybe. But it's part of the journey, because there are other parts of the journey. The other part of the journey is we had a launch party at the Heinz History Center in Pittsburgh, which is the Smithsonian Museum of Pittsburgh. I went in originally just to look at the space. I could not afford to have a party there. I basically said to them, you are Pittsburgh's museum and we are Pittsburgh Story. We should be friends. And they bought it. And they ended up going in with me 50-50 to throw this amazing 500-person invite only party for the launch of the book. So and I use the same skill set for both that conference in Philadelphia and the party in Pittsburgh. The results were very different in both of them. This one, nobody showed up. And this one, we just had a slam dunk event, and we were even able to stream it live. So if people go on to my website or Facebook page, you can see the panel and the event stream live that day in August, creating many memories for a lifetime to come. But again, that same fiery spirit happened twice, but the result was very different both times. And you have to be okay with the fact that sometimes the result's not going to go in your favor. You got to weather it and you got to move on.
I love it. I started in entrepreneurship in 2002, and I think about my past ups and downs. And right now, top of 2024, I'm coming out of a down, but it was a good down because I had to make some decisions that I know would ultimately impact my future. And so when I'm in the down, or maybe I like to call it the messy middle of my entrepreneurial journey season, I have to make sure that I remain positive and that I'm continuing to learn the lesson. I think
Yeah.
oftentimes we experience all of these things, but we don't learn from them. And so we continue to repeat them over and over and over again.
Yes. And I think also too, sometimes whenever you're experiencing those downs, then they can be sharp and they can be ticks on our confidence. And sometimes they're downright depressing and anxiety provoking. But it's in that mess and in that chaos that you're going to pull a gem out. I always tell people, and I told my dad this for years, and he was just like, rah, rah, rah. But I said, Dad, if you did not have a low point in your life, had you not gotten in trouble, this would not be a book, because nobody wants to read about somebody that just constantly hits home runs. I did this and I got $1 million, and then I did this and I got $1 million more, and then I did this and everybody was friends with me, and then I did this and the Queen of England and King of England came and visited me. Nobody wants to hear that because it's not real. They want to hear somebody that had some events where they triumphed, but they also had a balance, and they had some things that were very hard that they had to overcome, because we all want to know in life, how do we overcome those hard things? So I would just say to any entrepreneur that's listening, or a future author or whomever, if you're in a hard moment, know that A, it's not going to last forever, and B, try to tease out what it is that you can do to grow from this moment, to kind of slow down, to make things better. Because as Dr. Lisa just stated, sometimes it's in those chaos and messy moments that you are able to have a clearer, stronger path forward. And guess what? You will not be falling anymore, because you changed that thing that, caused you to plummet. And now the road is only leading to up whenever you have been going straight down. So it's okay.
So tell our listening, viewing audience where they can get a copy of the book.
Yes, absolutely. So we are really wherever books are sold, Amazon, Target, Barnes and Noble, Heinz History Center in Pittsburgh. Most bookstores do carry the book, but if they don't, they can order it. You can get so much more information about me and events and media, and even this presentation after it goes live will all be on my website, mariacpalmer.com. It's PALMER.com. And, would just love everybody to connect with us. We're also on social media, Facebook and Instagram at Joe Costanzo, JoeCostanzo, Primadonna, Primadonna. And I'm on the X as well at Maria C. Palmer. So please do connect with me. Please do attend an event if you can. Love to have you.
Awesome. So tell us about the plates in the back of the book. The plates, the pictures, the plates that you have for On the Rocks. There's the one with the red wine and pasta.
Oh, yeah. So in the back of the book, yes, we do have all kinds of different photos of the restaurant and some different plates with red wine and food, and my dad with his wall of plaques, and Mama Donna. So these are all nostalgic, and some celebrities here in the back. Tommy Lasorda was a really good customer. Danny Aiello, Jamie Lee Curtis had been in too. So we wanted to try to make the book authentic and give people a little flavor of what things looked like, tasted like. There are also several photos on my website to kind of give you a feel. I do a lot of recipes too. I do cooking classes. I do these really cool cook and book events, which are fun. And I put recipes a lot of times on Facebook and Instagram too. So you can kind of sample what it was like back there in the days of the prima donna.
See how I had you pull those items out? Because everybody likes pictures, right?
Oh,
Everybody loves to look at.
yes,
Now, I
yes,
will say, because I was reading this later in the evening when I saw the pasta and the red wine, I was thinking, no, it's time to go to bed. You cannot have that right now. But it caught my eye because I love pictures. And so as I was kind of like skimming through it initially, just kind of see what was going on, I was like, oh, pictures.
Yes, yeah. And, so many people, funny aside, have told me that when they read this late at night, they have been Uber eating and door dashing zucchini and spaghetti. And I'm like, I cannot be the root cause of why you're gaining 15 pounds. Like,
Well,
but yeah,
I mean,
you will
the
get hungry.
zucchini stuck out for me because I was thinking this weekend I need to get some zucchini. And I wonder how much it costs. And I wonder how they will prepare it. I had all these thoughts going through my mind when I'm supposed to be reading and focusing, but that just shows you how inviting the book is. You took us
Thank
on the
you.
journey.
Thank you.
And as a
Thank you
reader,
so
I
much.
love going on the journey of others. So impactful.
Well, I am just so pleased that that's the way that you felt. And I love being part of that journey for people. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Our time is almost up. I want to thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story. Our listening, viewing audience will see, the website and all the things scrolling across the bottom, so they'll can reach out to you. Order the book. Order the book. Order the book. Trust me, you will not be disappointed. If you are an entrepreneur, if you are a leader, if you are a wife, a mother, a grandfather, all of those things, there's a part of this book that is for you. One part that I was kind of half sleep reading, I saw something about Club Erotica.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
I have to tell you, because when I read, I have this bad habit of reading, highlighting, underlining. And so it's those things that kind of were sticking out but it kept my attention.
Yes. And yeah, that is actually one of my most favorite stories in the book. And
Oh, wait, would you talk
let's
about
just
Big
say how
Sexy?
oh, Big Sexy is everybody's favorite character. If you read this book, and it's so funny because Big Sexy in real life is not somebody that you want to know, but people love him. I had a coffee with the former New York Times food critic, and she said, I just loved Big Sexy. And I said, I'm embarrassed that the fact that you're saying that, like, like you're a New York Times food critic. How can you love Big Sexy? He's the head of a biker gang and, has got a criminal record out the wazoo, but I'm glad that you do.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Well, again, thank you so much for your time today. It has been a pleasure meeting you, learning about your family. Tell Mama Donna I said hi.
Oh my goodness. She says hello. You can find she actually told her whole side of the story last Tuesday. You can find that on my Facebook. People were very interested to hear Mama Donna's side.
Uh-oh, I'm gonna have to go in and go in the comments and let Mama Donna know I was here and I was paying attention.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Lisa.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.